The purpose of this video is to familiarize the technician with how to do a T-main replacement at a Truist branch. So what you'll get is a box that comes from ACG. It will be addressed to TCR technician. Inside of the box, you'll find a return shipping address or label that you'll affix to the box after you've put in the old T-main. And here, what you're going to get, different than what you've seen before, is the entire assembly. So there won't be the T-main itself to replace. You'll replace the entire assembly. And along with that, you'll see that we've safely packed the TPM module here as well. We'll readjust the camera and we'll put it on the TCR and we'll show you next steps and what it is that you're going to be unplugging and replugging here. See you in a minute. What you're about to see is the process for how to remove the old T-main assembly and how to replace the new one. So what you'll start with is removal of the 4 screws of the cover for the T-main. We'll then proceed to unplug all the necessary plugs to make this change happen. It is advisable that you take a picture of the old T-main before you remove any of the cables. We'll then replace the actual assembly itself, and then we'll go about the process of replugging everything in, and more than likely adding the TPM module as the last thing you do before you put the cover on. I do want to stress that it's important to take care of the old T-main and the TPM module. You probably want to separate those two. You're going to put the old module back into the box that it was shipped in, prepare that for shipping, and even add the adhesive tracking label. So in the next segment, you'll see that we start to do that work. Before you start this job, you'll want a few tools with you, not many. One, you'll probably want an angle cutting pliers so that you can cut a zip tie. We'll include a zip tie in the package as well to replace it. I like to use the longer JIS screwdriver that you'll need when you actually take the assembly off later. And the shorter JIS screwdriver is easier for the beginning of this. I have started this with the left 2 screws out just so you don't get to see a head in the picture, and we'll go ahead and take these 2 T-main cover screws off for a total of 4 there. At this point, you probably do want to take a picture of this. The only place that this is difficult at all is these 3 COM ports here on the far right side. They are labeled and they stack COM port 1, COM port 2, and COM port 3. So those do need to go back in the right position or the alarms will not work correctly. So let's get started. This is the cable bundle that actually comes from the cam itself. And so we can start with this bundle and we'll remove the speaker wire. You do want to be careful with this one. This is the LVDS cable. It has lots and lots of small cables. You want to be careful with that. So that is one kind of positive pull, right? Don't pretend like you're going to pull it out. Actually pull it out. There's a USB header that comes off of here at the top. And then these are the teller lights as well. So just pull those off. At this point, the next things that we can begin to take off are the left and right. They're labeled LAN 1 is left, LAN 2 is right, and our USB connector, which goes back to the actual BV. And then there is a power cable here at the bottom that is the power cable from the back of the machine. That reminds me, you do want to start this project certainly with the power off. So make sure you turned the power off at the front door as well as the main power supply at the back. There are really only 2 more things to unplug here. These are 2 small cables that are part of the TCR wiring harness. So that will hang down, and that leaves us with the COM ports that we talked about before. So I would start by removing this old TPM module. You want to be careful that you don't get that confused with the new TPM module. So we're going to set that aside. If we put the wrong TPM module, this will not work. And lastly, we'll remove the 3 COM ports, which is COM port 1 at the bottom, COM port 2 in the middle, and COM port 3 at the top. Okay, I see that there are a couple things to cut. So here are some of the cable ties we talked about. So we'll cut this one. We're going to be careful about this. You're going to notice in the film there's already a cut cable. Okay, so now we can remove this cable assembly and set it to the outside of the module. So this is where I like to use the longer screwdriver to access the 4 screws again that hold this module, this assembly in place. You want to be careful with these. I need to speed that video up. All right, that is 2. You're going to see me cross in front of the camera, and we'll take the other 2 out over here. All right, so the old system is now free. I want to take that and put that in my return shipping box. I'll include the TPM module with that as well. And that part of this will be done. The next part is that we will install the new version. Switching back to a shorter screwdriver for a little more control here as I try and keep my head out of frame. Right. This is why we love to be able to speed up a video. All right. Once you get 1 screw in, you're pretty much home free. All right, 2 screws. Switching back to the smaller screwdriver is helpful here. All right. That's 3. And that's 4. All right. The only thing that is left for us to do here is reconnect our cables. We should secure those cables with a zip tie. I do think that putting the T-main housing back on is really probably the hardest part of this, especially solo. If you had someone with you, that'd be a lot easier. All right, I'm going to start with the COM ports just because that is the most difficult part of this. They're all labeled. Again, the stack goes starting from top to bottom, 3, 2, 1. So this is COM port 3. This is COM port 2. And this is COM 1. Okay. While I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and route these smaller cables first underneath. So these will plug back into the front interface board. They can only go in their own place. You can't confuse that. It's not possible. Don't find yourself forcing it. You're doing something wrong. The next one to go in down here is the power cable that actually powers up the entire T-main system. Important to note that the clip on this connector will point up towards the top of the TCR. You're going to see some head in here. You do want to make sure that is clicked solidly into place and that the cables are tucked kind of neatly underneath or on the side and around it. You don't want to get them into the fan over here. We can finish up with our USB cable, which goes to the bill validator, and then COM port 2 on the right, COM port 1 on the, or Ethernet port 2 on the right, Ethernet 1 on the left. Make sure those are clicked in. Right when it's not clicked in, you're going to get an E200 error, so you'll know to come back and click that in. And then lastly, we can finish up with our connections from the actual cam itself. So small gray and yellow cable is the audio cable. It gives us our beeping sounds. LVDS is our video. Our USB clicks onto the USB header at the top of the T-main here, a little bit difficult to do, and we've got our teller lights. You will want to put at least one zip tie back in to zip tie these cables in a neat fashion. And then this will end with installing the TPM module. So I'm taking that out of its plastic that it was in. You do want to be reasonably careful. As you look at it, you'll see that it has a blank at the top here. So the blank points to the top. And so you're just going to move this cable out of the way, and you're going to gently drop it down onto the header here. Don't get in a hurry. This is like the last step, and if you bend this right, then you're sunk. Okay, so it only goes in one way. It's pretty simple. That's really all that you have to do. And the last mechanical step of this is to replace our T-main cover. I'm not going to bother putting all the screws in, but I'll get the two on this side in. And then I do need to cut the cable or the zip tie that I put in. So I'll cut the zip tie. And then the one thing I do want to do is, as I slide this in, I want to make sure that I'm not dragging cables, on the bottom of the vault. So it may be we close this before we actually finalize this zip tie, and we make sure that these are out of the way so that they're not dragging on the vault. All right. So at this point, you will have called into the ATM iMac line, which is 252-246-4646. Option 1. They will give you the machine login, which is in the format of SVATEC 01 or 02, something like that, and a very bizarre password. You'll log into the machine. You'll also need your keyboard with an integrated mouse plugged into this USB port. And you'll walk through the steps in the checklist, which are really to log in with those credentials, observe that SCCM has been installed, all detailed in the checklist. You'll set some IP addresses, and that will be the end of the install. At the end of the install, these are the pieces that you're left with. The old TPM module, I can't stress enough, don't get that confused with the new one. A small anti-static bag for it, which you'll place that in the bag. If you can use the old tape, great. If not, there's tape at the branch. You'll have the old anti-static bag, which you'll use to pack the old module, and you will find in the box that you'll have a return shipping label. So you'll safely put these things in the box, close the box back up, tape it closed, affix the label, and you will leave that at the branch. It will be the branch's responsibility to return the old T-main. There'll also be a checklist or a sign-off sheet that you'll need to get someone at the branch, if a manager's there, or the branch operations partner, sometimes called a BOP. If they're there, they'll sign that as well. And that will conclude the install. Thank you.